In this one, I'm going to be giving my preview and predictions for college football week 10. It's crazy that we're already in week 10. This is a pretty big week. Of course, as we get closer to the end of the season, playoff implications start getting talked about. Next week will be, or next Tuesday rather, will be the first edition of the actual playoff rankings. So this is definitely a really big week for teams to make their case, and we're going to get a lot of information next week about what the playoff committee is valuing this year, what they're maybe not valuing as much. So let's get into it. So first, these are just some teams that I think are going to win pretty handily this weekend. Houston, they're number 22. They got West Virginia at home, and West Virginia, sitting at 2-6, has really not been good at all this year. And so I think on paper, it should be a pretty routine win for the Cougars. I haven't really watched that much Houston this year, but they are 7-1, and they're right in the mix of things for not only the Big 12 title game, but also for the college football playoff. But this is a game that they can't lose, and I don't think they will. Then we got Michigan. They get Purdue at home. Michigan coming off the rivalry win against Spartans, and Purdue is also 2-6, like West Virginia. They have not been good. I think this will be an easy win for Michigan. And then Notre Dame, similarly, they go on the road. However, it's against Boston College, who last time I checked, they had one win. I'm pretty sure that's still what they have. Um, so it should be a win. And just to clarify, I think a loss by any three of these teams would just be absolutely catastrophic for their playoff chances, but I don't think it will happen. Okay, so getting into the real games, I guess. This is the noon one, Penn State at Ohio State. And it's kind of sad because in the preseason, this would have been like a potential top five matchup, but obviously Penn State has had one of their worst seasons in the last decade. Um, and Franklin got fired, Drew Aller's out for the season. And on top of that, it's at Ohio State, and Ohio State is just far the superior team. So what could have been a close game in the preseason is now looking like a blowout. So I think Ohio State wins this one big. Then Vanderbilt and Texas. Vanderbilt coming off a huge win against Missouri, and Texas coming off a win where they really should not have won. They were kind of down and out against Mississippi State, and then the Bulldogs let them back in. They took advantage and they won. Questions about whether or not Arch Manning will play this weekend. That's still up in the air, I believe. But it helps for Texas that this is a home game. And this is also a must-win game for Texas because they have two losses right now. I don't think a three-loss team is going to get into the playoffs this year. That could change, but I just don't think it's going to happen. And it's really unfortunate for Texas because they also have A&M and they have Georgia left on the schedule. So this is really a must-win game for them. And for Vanderbilt, this is a huge opportunity. They are 7-1. Yeah, they're 7-1 right now. You can go on the road and get a win at Texas, and then the rest of their schedule is pretty manageable. They get Auburn at home, then Kentucky at home, and then they finish at Tennessee. So they really have a good shot if they win this game at finishing at worst 10-2. And in terms of the actual game, I think this could really go either way. I like Vanderbilt. I think they're more battle tested. Texas just has not looked great. Like I said, I really think they should have lost that game last week. They've kind of been squeaking by. Diego Piava has been playing really well, and Vandy has a lot of confidence going into this game. So I'm actually going to go Vanderbilt, although I could see it going either way. Miami at SMU. This is another big game for the ACC in terms of um, the ACC title race. Both of these teams are squarely in the mix. SMU is not really in the college football playoff mix, whereas Miami is. And this would be a really bad loss for the Hurricanes if they were to lose. I'm not sure that a 10-2 ACC team is going to get in. That's how stiff the competition is this year. I think they would have a really good case because remember they still have that win over Notre Dame. Um, that's their best win. So they would have a good case. I'm not sure they would make it. I think they would, but who knows? Anyways. I like Miami to win this one. I think it could potentially be a trip-up game for them, but I think they will be locked in. I like Carson Beck and the crew to get it done. Then another ACC game, Louisville at Virginia Tech. Louisville has been playing well as well. They're number 16, another team that's in contention for the ACC. This could be a little bit of a little bit of a trap game. Virginia Tech hasn't had the season they wanted, but it's on the road. I mean, sorry, it's at Virginia Tech. You never really know what could happen. I don't think Louisville is going to lose this game. I It's going to sound crazy. I trust Miller Moss. and the crew to get this one. Georgia, Florida, the classic rivalry game. Florida, this one, I think a lot of people are going to think that it will be close, and I could totally see that because Florida, although they're 3-4, they are a very talented team, and we know what they are capable of. They scheduled way too hard from the beginning of the season. They were never, in my opinion, really going to be a playoff contender because their schedule is so hard. Um, and then Georgia hasn't really dominated any games. Um, they've won their games, but they haven't really dominated in the true Georgia fashion that we're used to. So this is a rivalry game. Tensions will be high. I could see Florida coming out and make this a close contest, but ultimately, I think Georgia gets this win. Texas Tech and Kansas State, another potential slip-up opportunity. Or wait, yeah, this is a potential slip-up opportunity for one of the top teams in the Big 12. Kansas State hasn't been great. Texas Tech has looked like the class of the Big 12 so far in the season, and they're going to be on lockdown mode too. I don't know if their starting quarterback is playing. I believe there were some questions about him. Um, but I think regardless, I like Texas Tech to win this game. Indiana and Maryland. Indiana has looked absurd. They've looked really good, potentially the best team in the country. This one on the road at a Maryland team who isn't bad. They should have beaten Washington, really. They were up 20-0, I believe, or 17-0, something like that. And then they ended up losing that one. So they haven't been bad. Um, but just to put it in perspective, Indiana went on the road to Oregon and won. I don't think they're really going to be that phased by going on the road at Maryland. And as we've seen under Kurt Signetti, they aren't taking any of their opponents lightly. So I think this could start out close, but I like Indiana to pull away. Virginia and Cal, this is where I think we get a bit of an upset. Virginia is squarely in the mix for the ACC. They're going up against a 5-3 Cal team who isn't really, they haven't been playing horribly. They're kind of middle of the pack in the ACC. Um, and I am going to go bold and pick Cal for the upset. Ole Miss and South Carolina. South Carolina almost had that game against Alabama last week. Really close one. This one's going to be a lot tougher to go on the road at Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is really looking strong. I'm not really sure what the rest of their schedule looks like, but I'd assume that they're getting pretty close to kind of locking up a playoff spot. And I think this is a game that they should win pretty handily. Georgia Tech and NC State. Georgia Tech, th- they have been the best team in the ACC, still unbeaten, going on the road against NC State, who's no slouch. I think this game is going to be close. I think it's going to be a close contest. But I do like Georgia Tech to win. I think people are still underrating them, and it's also really going to be interesting to see how the playoff committee ranks them, how much respect they give the ACC. The nightcap in the Big Ten, USC at Nebraska, kind of a de facto elimination game for both of these teams. Nebraska 6-2, USC's 5-2. Um, I believe I don't know because if USC goes 10-2, they still have like, for example, Oregon on the schedule and Iowa on the schedule. So, and they beat Michigan. This would be a win on the road at Nebraska. That would be a pretty solid resume. I think they would get in at 10-2. Nebraska, I'm not so sure, um, because they haven't had as strong of a schedule, and I think their hardest game after this is going to be Iowa in the last week of the season. So I don't know that a 10-2 Nebraska would even get in. But regardless, this is still a must-win game for both teams if they want a shot. Um, and I think Nebraska, we know the struggles with their O-line, and I think part of that is Dylan Raiola not really playing well either, holding onto the ball for way too long and kind of showing a lack of pocket awareness. And we saw that USC was kind of able to dominate that game against Michigan when their defense wasn't playing up to snuff. And I think this is going to be a similar case because Nebraska got ran all over by Michigan. Um, so I think that USC is going to find a lot of success in their offense, and I think they will get to Raiola enough times to win this one. Oklahoma at Tennessee, another de facto elimination game. Both teams sitting at 2 losses. I don't see a 3-loss team getting in unless things change. Oklahoma coming off a tough loss against Ole Miss at home. Maybe we'll see some carryover. I'm not sure, but I think it's going to be hard for them to find a lot of momentum. This will be a close game. Um, but I like uh, Joey Aguilar and Jordan Bishop. to get this one done for the Vols. And then finally, the nightcap in the Big 12, Cincinnati. Another surprise story in the Big 12. They have been playing really well against the Utah team who has two losses. They're not really being considered for the playoff right now, but who knows? Things could change. And I actually think this is the moment where Cincinnati slips up and gets their loss in the Big 12. And I like that it's at Utah. I think that's going to be a great advantage for them. So I'm going with the Utes. And then just some further playoff implications before we see the college football playoff rankings released next week. Like I mentioned, Nebraska USC. I think the loser of that game is out. I don't know that the winner of that game definitely isn't in, but the loser's definitely out because the three-loss Big Ten team is definitely not getting in. Vanderbilt, Texas, like I mentioned, this is big for Vanderbilt because if they get a win, they're looking pretty solid for a playoff spot, even if they were to trip up against Tennessee late in the season. And Texas, again, this is a must-win game for them. At 9-3, I don't. If they were to lose this game, even if they finish 9-3, I still don't know because the competition is just so stiff this year. So I just don't know. I think this is a must-win for them. Then Oklahoma, Tennessee, both teams at two losses. Definitely feels like an elimination game. Um, so yeah, it's gonna be a big one. And then lastly, really any game for the ACC and Big 12 contenders. The AP has kind of shown that they're not giving that much respect to these two conferences. We'll see what the College Football Playoff Committee thinks, but what it means is um, there's very little margin for error for these contenders in this conference. So you have to take care of business. We see a lot of these top teams going on the road this week. They really have to not trip up and they have to win those games to stay in contention because, like, for example, I don't know that a 10-2, let's say Georgia Tech loses this weekend and then they lose to Georgia at the end of the year. I don't know that a 10-2 Georgia Tech team would really be at the quality of, say, like a 10-2 Big Ten team or an SEC team when it comes to the final decisions for the college football playoff. And I don't know that that's the right decision, but I just get the feeling that that would be the decision. Um, so in general, it's very big for these teams to take care of business and not slip up. So, anyways, those are my playoff. I mean, my Week 10 preview and picks. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next one.